The story begins in the year 1850. A well-known writer appears, traveling to meet someone. The writer arrives at a house and knocks on the door. The woman inside asks him to come back later, thinking he is just another visitor. The writer explains, "I'm not a customer. I'm a writer." The writer says he is there to meet her husband, Thomas, who is an older man. He wants to hear a story from Thomas. But when they meet, Thomas is not happy. He yells, "Are you crazy? You came all this way just to meet me?" The writer stays calm and ignores Thomas's anger. He tells Thomas, "I want to hear the true story you know." To convince him, the writer offers all his money. He even shows the money to Thomas, but Thomas refuses. Thomas says, "Go look in the government's history records. You'll find the story there." But the writer said to Thomas, "I need to hear the real story from you. I don't want to check the government records." This made Thomas very angry, and he told the writer to leave. Thomas said, "I don't know anything." The worried writer started to go away, but Thomas's wife stopped him. She asked the writer not to worry about her husband because Thomas hadn't told the story to anyone yet. She asked Thomas to come and tell his story about what they went through. Finally, Thomas agreed to tell the story because they were very poor and needed money. Thomas brought the writer closer and said, "I will tell you the story as much as you can handle because it's quite sad one." Thomas said, "This was an event in my life that changed me." Now, Thomas begins to tell his story. In 1820, people hunted whales in the sea because their oil was rare. People traded whale oil and loved whaling and even gambled on it. The story continues, showing a man named Owen. Owen worked for a whaling company and had a wife. He was happy with his life. The company called Owen to meet the owner. They told him about a very expensive ship they were sending out to sea for whaling. They wanted Owen to join as the ship's head. The company had promised him earlier that he would be the captain next time, but now they were giving the captain's position to someone else, a man named George. George was the son of the company owner. The company promised Owen again that he would be captain next time. To make it fair, they offered Owen a raise in his wages. Owen agreed, but told them to sign a contract that guaranteed he would become captain next time. Owen started getting ready for the journey. His wife was unhappy about him leaving. She said, "Promise me you will come back alive." She also gave Owen a locket to wear for protection. Later, George, the new captain, is shown getting ready for the journey. His father encourages him, saying, "My son, go and return victorious." The whalers gather to leave, and the townspeople come to see them off. Among the crowd is a young boy named Thomas, the same storyteller now grown old. It is Thomas's first time going to sea for whaling. On the ship, Owen's childhood friend and other crew members join him. Soon, Captain George and Owen meet, but George, being the captain, tries to act superior to Owen and treats him harshly. Owen, being lower in rank, cannot speak up against him. They set sail, but the ship runs into trouble at sea. It seems stuck, but using his experience and skills, Owen manages to fix the problem and save the ship. This shows that Owen is skilled and capable, unlike Captain George, who lacks experience. Seeing Owen's abilities, George becomes jealous. That night at the dining table, George takes revenge by insulting Owen in front of everyone. He mocks Owen, saying, "You're just a farmer's son and nothing more than a layman." Owen felt deeply humiliated by George's insult, but couldn't do anything about it. He quietly left the dining area. On the ship, it was clear that laymen like Owen were treated poorly and looked down upon. The next day, George gave Owen more commands, which Owen reluctantly followed. While sailing, Owen noticed signs of a storm ahead. He warned George, saying it could be dangerous and they should turn the ship back. But George refused and insisted they sail straight into the storm. As the storm hit, the ship was in serious danger, and Owen shouted for them to stop. However, George stubbornly continued. Their lives and the ship were at great risk, but eventually they managed to escape the storm. Afterward, George angrily told Owen, "You will apologize to me in front of everyone, and we will sail back to the island without hunting whales." But Owen says, "We cannot return empty-handed. Many people are depending on us to bring oil. Their lives will be affected if we fail." After much convincing, George finally agreed, and they continued their journey. 3 months passed, and they reached a part of the sea filled with whales. The crew began whaling, and Owen successfully hunted a large whale. The whale tried to escape, but was eventually caught and killed. They pulled it onto the ship and started extracting oil. To complete the process, they needed someone small to go inside the whale, so they sent young Thomas. Days passed as they continued hunting whales. However, their luck ran out, and they couldn't find more whales to hunt. The crew faced a big problem. They were running out of food. They stopped on an island in the middle of the sea to rest and figure out their next move. There, they met another captain who was also hunting whales. This captain shared a story from his last hunt. He told them, "We sailed to the heart of the sea and saw the biggest whale ever, called the great whale. It was taller and larger than any whale I've seen. But the great whale attacked us, destroying our ship. It killed all my crew, and I barely survived with a broken arm and hand." The captain left, but crew became greedy. They decided to sail to the same part of the sea to hunt the great whale. After a long journey of 14 months, they finally reached the area the captain had described. They prepared their weapons and boats and sailed out. Suddenly, something attacked attacked Owen's boat, throwing everyone into the water. When they looked up, they saw the great whale for the first time. It was just as massive as the captain had described. The whale started to swim away, but Owen's companions, still in their boat, saw another smaller whale nearby. They attacked and managed to kill it, pulling it onto their boat. The great whale noticed the crew's actions and directly attacked their ship, causing it to sink. George, watching from a boat, immediately sailed back to the ship. He commanded everyone to leave before it sank. The crew quickly boarded their smaller boats, grabbing whatever food and supplies they could find. The next morning, they examined the sea map, but their situation became worse when they got caught in another storm. During the storm, Owen's childhood friend was seriously injured. Owen stayed by his friend's side, taking care of him, but the rest of the crew saw the injured man as a burden. A month passed, and their food ran out. They were weak and close to dying when someone spotted land in the distance. Hopeful, they sailed toward it. As they approached the shore, Owen felt uneasy. His fear came true when the great whale struck their boats, damaging them further. The crew finally reached the shore, carried by the strong ocean waves, but they were in terrible condition. They were so desperate for survival that they ate anything they could find on the island. The island was barren and uninhabited. While searching for food, the crew discovered a cave filled with human skeletons. It was clear that others had been stranded there before, but never rescued. The crew feared they would share the same fate. Determined to leave, they decided to repair their damaged boats. However, some of the crew, including Owen's injured childhood friend, chose to stay on the island, believing they would survive better there than risking the sea again. Owen promised his childhood friend that he would return with help. Days turned into weeks, and after 48 days, the crew's condition had worsened. Starvation had taken hold, and they were barely surviving. One of their companions died, and as another crew member was about to throw the body into the sea, the group made a decision. They decided to eat the body to stay alive. It was a heartbreaking choice, but they had no other way to survive. The story shifts back to the present, where the older Thomas shares this horrifying memory. He is deeply ashamed and saddened by what they had to do. His wife, who was listening, bursts into tears, overwhelmed by her husband's tragic experience. She urges Thomas to continue the story. A month later, the crew was still drifting at sea, starving and desperate. To survive, they started playing a deadly game among themselves. The loser of the game was killed, and the others ate their flesh. One day, Captain George lost the game. Instead of accepting his fate, he handed a gun to his cousin and begged him to shoot him. However, George's cousin couldn't do it and took his own life instead. The remaining crew consumed his flesh to survive. One day, the crew encountered the great whale again. Owen prepared to attack, but when he looked into the whale's eye, he felt something and chose not to harm it. The whale swam away peacefully. Eventually, after many days, a ship spotted them. George's boat was found first, and the ship's crew was horrified to see human skeletons in the boat. Meanwhile, Owen and Thomas had been separated from the others and were barely alive. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Owen spotted another ship on the horizon. After days of recovery, they are brought back home, where their return surprises everyone. Owen's wife, who had been hoping for his return, rushes to meet him. Later, Owen and Thomas meet, and Owen gifts Thomas his treasured whale pin as a token of their shared journey. Owen urges George to step up and do his duty as captain by revealing the truth. True to his promise, he sends a rescue boat for his childhood friend stranded on the island. Tragically, it is too late, as his friend has already passed away. The narrative shifts back to the present, where Thomas concludes his story. In the final scenes, months later, it is revealed that the writer's book based on their experience has been published and has made him famous.